Imagine walking through the damp, isolated fields of 12th century England and discovering two terrified children hiding in the harvest. But there was something immediately impossible about them. Their skin was completely, vividly green. When villagers tried speaking to them, the children answered back in a frantic, unrecognizable language, wearing clothes woven from materials nobody in the region had ever seen. The children were visibly starving, yet they rejected every piece of normal food, bread, meat, and fruit that the locals offered to them. We know the specific location of this encounter. Chroniclers William of Newburgh and Ralph of Coggeshall both recorded these events as having occurred in the village of Woolpit. While the details sound like folklore, the account remains a persistent anomaly in the medieval record, a story that survived because contemporary writers didn't know where else to categorize it. The immediate aftermath of their discovery was tragic. The young boy failed to adapt to his new environment, grew increasingly lethargic, and soon died. His sister survived. She eventually discovered a taste for raw broad beans, adapted to a normal diet, and over several years, the green hue of her skin faded away. She lived long enough to learn English, finally giving her the vocabulary to explain her origins to the historians of the time. People expected her to name a neighboring country. Instead, she claimed she and her brother originated from a place she called St. Martin's Land. She described it as a world trapped in an eternal twilight, where the sun never fully rose, and everything across the landscape was permanently tinted green. She described her people as a society living entirely underground, completely cut off from the surface world we know. Her testimony was supposed to resolve the mystery of their arrival. Instead, it introduced a setting that defies known geographical reality. To evaluate her story, we place the evidence along a plausibility spectrum, starting with realistic explanations. The Flemish immigrants theory explains their unrecognized language and clothing. For their green skin and dietary aversions, medical historians point to chlorosis, a condition caused by severe malnourishment. These grounded theories address the children's biology, but they do not account for the girls' consistent memory of a subterranean twilight world. Because grounded science hits a wall, we look to the right side of the spectrum to rationalize the description of St. Martin's Land. One theory suggests a hidden subterranean offshoot of humanity might have existed below the Earth's surface. Others argue for a spatial anomaly, suggesting the children accidentally slipped through a portal from a parallel dimension. A modern hypothesis proposes that St. Martin's Land was another planet entirely, and the children were stranded visitors. Because the 12th century evidence is anecdotal, these science fiction theories can never be definitively proven or disproven, leaving the case open. Over 800 years have passed since those two children were found, and their true identity remains an unsolved cold case. The Woolpit story represents a specific kind of historical problem, a recorded event that contains data points our standard models of the 12th century cannot explain. This tension between recorded fact and impossible explanation appears elsewhere, such as the massive geoglyphs carved into the Peruvian desert. We can see them, but we cannot fully reconstruct the intent of those who made them. We see the same pattern in modern data with the wow signal, a singular recorded event that lacks a repeating context. Like the children in the field, it is a piece of evidence that sits alone in the record. These gaps in our documentation represent the limits of our current tools to fully map the past. But some gaps in the record are even more unsettling, like the event in 1518, where hundreds of people reportedly danced themselves to death. That is our next investigation.